I'm Andrea Isabel Lucas, founder of Bar and Soul and author of Own It All. The Own It All podcast is all about how to stop waiting for change and start creating it because your life belongs to you. Every week, I interview inspiring women and they share their tips about how to own it all in the various areas of your life, like career, time management, health, style, and relationships. Tune in every week so they can share their advice with you. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review in your favorite listening app. Hi, I'm Andrea Isabel Lucas, and you are listening to the Own It All podcast. Today, I am so excited because our guest is Susan Hyatt. This is actually my first time actually physically talking to you, Susan, but I have been just following along and reading your newsletters forever. Susan is a master certified life and business coach. She's the author of Bear, a 7-week program to transform your body, get more energy, feel amazing, and become the bravest, most unstoppable version of you. Her number one passion is helping women get more of whatever they crave. And her philosophy is, if you crave it, then you can create it. Susan, welcome.
Andrea, I'm so delighted to be here. And I'm so just honored because I followed your business as well. And I feel like we know each other, even though this is the first time we're actually chatting on the air.
I totally agree. You're one of those people that I follow online and it's like I've known you forever. I almost feel like if you get a cold, like I might catch a cold, but I know it doesn't really work that way.
So funny.
Like you're in my life daily from afar.
Yes.
So I'm so excited about your book. One of my favorite things, I mean, you know what I love? First of all, I love how long your subtitle is for your book. And as I was reading it, I was thinking, you can't summarize Susan Hyatt's message any shorter than that. Like, in fact, there's a lot more to it than that. That's not even enough. So you've got a lot of really empowering and just inspiring things to say. And there's so many that I want to dive into, but I thought we could start on the some of the body stuff and body image stuff, because I'm sure in your work as a coach, and I know in my work in the fitness world and just in living the life of a woman, I know that body image is a really, really big issue. Now, you weren't always as happy and comfortable in your body as you are today. At what point in your life did you realize I have to take ownership of my health? Was there a wake-up moment for you?
Yeah, so I really started struggling with food and body image issues when I was about 11 years old, which is not unusual for most women. I mean, a lot of the clients that I work with, it starts as young as 5. And really, I was a super confident young girl. And I feel like I'm always throwing my older sister under the bus, but she knows I love her. We're great friends. But on my 11th birthday, I got a Polaroid camera for my birthday. And we were taking pictures of each other with my Polaroid camera. And she took a picture of me and I was feeling super fly in my new JCPenney lavender shorts and striped shirt. But when the photo developed, she was like, oh my gosh. And I was like, what's wrong? And she said, your thighs are getting big. And I remember I kind of looked down at my thighs, 11 years old, and felt just these waves of shame and embarrassment. Like, oh, I had never considered that my body shouldn't look the way that it looked up until that point. But for many women, it starts much younger. But I started to really compare myself to other girls then. And it started the trajectory of dieting. And by my early 30s, I really had tried pretty much every diet available. I had spent my life yo-yoing back and forth. And I found myself picking my kids up from school, coming home, and trying to get answers from a wheel of brie. Like I would sit my little kids down at the dining room table to do their pre-K and first grade homework worksheets. And I would go to the kitchen and quote unquote treat myself and just start plowing through snacks and drinking wine. And I was just exhausted and not enjoying the life I had set up and created for myself. And so I started to really explore what was going on with me. And I hired a coach to help me figure that out, and started realizing that I was really numbing my emotions with food. And from that point on, I really started devoting myself to helping other women figure that out as well.
Gosh, there's so much in there that I want to kind of unpack, right down to those moments that get burned into our brains from childhood where something happens. And it's like, I think too, I just want to say this for like all the parents that are listening. You think you can stop your kid from having moments like that happen, and you can't. So don't even try.
Right.
Sometimes the things that my daughter shares with me that were like traumatic moments for her, it was like when she was in preschool and, everyone was getting to answer a question and everyone was clapping when you got the right answer. But then when she got the wrong answer, no one clapped. And she was like, oh my God. The questions were about penguins. And now she like jokes around that she hates penguins. And it was just like a traumatic moment for her. It's little things like that you just can't protect a developing mind from encountering, because it's all part of developing and growing up, is when you have those moments that are that end up being defining, and on the surface, others maybe wouldn't even realize that's occurring. So that sucks. And that your sister must just feel awful that turned out to be
the defining moment. Well, what's funny is I recorded a video probably 3-4 years ago telling the story, and I felt like I needed to talk to her about it before she saw this video floating around social media. Yeah. And so I said to her, like, hey, like, obviously I'm not blaming you. I'm just sharing a personal story about what happened for me. And obviously she's 6.5 years older than me. Obviously she, as a teenager, she had her own food and body images she was dealing with to project that on to me.
Exactly.
But so I told her the story and she started laughing. She goes, I don't remember that. I do remember making fun of you for your blue eyeshadow, but like she didn't even remember. And I think that proves to your point that as parents, we can be as body positive and as uplifting and as supportive and loving as we can for our kids. But there's peer groups, there's culture at large. The messaging that a woman's body is for consumption, entertainment, and should be as thin as possible is everywhere. Yeah. So there are some things, of course, that parents can do to prepare their kids, but you really can't shield them and put them in a bubble about this.
No, you can't make everything perfect for them. You can't protect them from failing or being disappointed or having people disagree with who they are or how they are or whatever. And it's hard, but I do think that it's somewhat comforting to know that. Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there as like, before, if anybody's listening, before your brain goes to this place of like, of course we can try to be proactive in the message that we're sending. No question about that. But like, if you think you can stop moments like that from happening, like it's there. Your sister didn't invent body shaming. She wasn't even trying to body shame you, I'm sure.
Right.
And she's not the one who decided your thighs were too big. Actually, it was something else that she already, like you said, had absorbed and was just projecting.
Right. Exactly.
It was interesting when you were talking about going to the Wheel of Brie for answers. I was picturing like a magic crystal ball.
Right.
Brie.
Magical teas.
Yeah. But it is so funny how we have these behaviors that we maybe don't even, they're rather unconscious or that we might not even understand. Even today and in the here and now, it's like I have this weird thing where, I eat really well and I try to fuel myself with really good food. And there is something that happens right before bedtime where I just freak out and want to eat food that I've labeled bad, where I'm just like, my daughter has like these, I don't know, chocolate covered like berries or something. I don't know what they are, but I just found myself literally standing up in the kitchen last night, just popping them in my mouth one after another and being like, why am I doing this? Like, and why can't I stop? Like, why don't I just go brush my teeth and like leave the kitchen for the night? But it's funny how, we don't really not only realize what we're doing, but also like sometimes it feels hard to control or even understand why it's happening.
Right.
Is that something that you work with your clients on in your bear program?
Yeah, absolutely. There are 7 steps to the bear process, and one of them for sure is paying attention to patterns and paying attention to how we label food. And so I do think emotional eating can happen for a variety of reasons. It could be happening because there's an uncomfortable emotion coming up and food could be used as a soother. It could be you're just eating behind your own back where it's like a mindless activity. It could be that a lot of things happen throughout the day where your body didn't get exactly what it needed. And so what I notice for me and for a lot of my clients, nighttime right before bed eating is usually one of 2 things. It's usually there's a whole bunch of stuff that came up today that I am anxious about dealing with. So let me soothe myself. Or I deprived myself a lot today and now I'm going to get me some right before bedtime. And so, which kind of leads to one of my biggest premises, which is women have plenty of willpower. None of us need more willpower. We really need more pleasure. And so for me, that wheel of brie was a combination of those 2 things. I was really numbing out from the boredom that I felt and then the shame and guilt that I felt that I wasn't totally loving after school motherhood. But what was also happening was that I would spend all day not eating or not allowing myself pleasurable foods. It was all like, if I was dieting, then it was all like skinless chicken and a kale smoothie and not a lot of foods that were enjoyable to my palate. And so then by bedtime or late afternoon, it was like, forget it. I'm going to treat myself, quote unquote.
Yeah. So you bring up a really great point about dieting. So you are very much anti-dieting. Can you explain your eating philosophy?
Sure. You could call it an eating philosophy, but it's basically, the thing about diets is that in any kind of external eating plan that you can mess up is a diet. And the problem with diets is that they are not sustainable and there's always a backlash. So you can white knuckle it for so long. You can do whatever plan, any of you listening, if you're on some kind of eating plan, you really can do that sometimes for years. But then when you stop, there's a backlash. And what I want to help women do is stop labeling foods good or bad and start looking at foods as they're all allowed. There are foods that power you up. So I call them power foods, that they energize your body, and that may be different for different people. So I can eat gluten, my girlfriend cannot. My girlfriend can eat dairy, I cannot. And it's from really exploring what foods feel like in your body, your unique system that makes sense. And then there's pleasure foods that their only purpose is to taste delicious, and that's okay. And so I really, in the past decade, working with women on food and body issues and on losing weight and self-care and all these things, the thing that works, the thing that is sustainable is putting your body in charge and treating yourself with love and care. And that usually doesn't look like counting points, weighing food, eliminating entire food groups, unless it's directed from your body.
And what if you have a client who is clear that she wants to lose weight? And how do you support that?
Yeah. So I'm not anti-weight loss and I'm not anti having a goal to make changes to your body. I'm in full support of you can love your body just like we can love our country and want to make changes. We can love our spouse or partner and want to improve our marriage or relationship. So it's not like I am in the camp of that any kind of weight loss is harmful. I actually don't think that's true. I think you can have a goal for weight loss. And so I help lots of women lose weight, but it is not from a place of deprivation, and it is not from a place of beating yourself thin. It's from a place of exploring, why do you want to lose weight in the first place? Let's get really clear. And then how can we create a plan for yourself that is not something that is going to require you to completely change your lifestyle, completely change how you eat, completely change how you move. Like, you can create a plan that is sustainable and loving from a place, asking the question, what feels like love? Mm-hmm. And when all decisions are coming from that place, it doesn't feel like something that is so hard to maintain. Now, that doesn't mean, like, this morning I went on a run, I'm traveling. I'm not in my regular routine. I'm not quite getting the sleep I usually get.
Yeah.
It wasn't easy to get out of bed and go for a run. So I don't mean that hard things aren't worth it. But the question I asked myself to get out of bed was, if you don't go, will you feel proud of yourself or regretful? And I was like, okay, I'll get up.
That I'm glad you brought that up, because I really want to talk about, do you really get up and run 5 miles every morning?
No, not every morning, but 5 times a week I do.
What?
Yeah, I do. I love to. And let me tell you something. I was a professional couch potato 12 years ago. Okay. So this is a miracle. And it also is a miracle that it does come from a place of knowing that if I am able to coach myself out of bed and go, I'm able to generate so much more energy and give so much back to myself and the world. If I do that, it doesn't come from a place of, you better get up and run because you ate a cheeseburger last night.
Mm-hmm. It just genuinely makes you feel amazing.
Yes.
That's awesome. So what time does your alarm go off in the morning?
Oh, your listeners are going to want to hang up on me, but I'm not suggesting that everybody have this routine, but this is what works for me. I get up at 4:45 in the morning. Mm-hmm. And my best friend and I run together from about 5:30 to 6:30. And then I usually, depending, 3 days a week, I'll then lift some weights with a trainer. Mm-hmm. And I usually am starting my coaching calls at about 8 or 9 a.m. Central Time. So I get up really early, and I started getting up that early. I started in 5-minute increments, rolling my clock back when my kids were little. Now they're 18 and 20. So I don't have to get up that early to get a workout in before the kids get up, but I still do it just because it feels amazing.
I love that you are not only getting a fantastic workout that energizes you for the day, but you are spending time with your best friend. Like, I can't even think of a healthier way to begin your days.
Oh, it's so amazing, because any kind of worry or venting or celebrating that needs to happen first thing in the morning, I get it out. And then I'm able to start my day really fresh. We solve all the world's problems on those 5 a.m. runs.
I bet you do. I can totally picture it now. And that's actually really cool advice about just going back in 5-minute increments. I feel like I'm with you. Like, some people are going to hear that and be like, absolutely no effing way, which is totally fine. It's not like you're saying everybody has to do that. But I do remember a mentor of mine saying to me that, like, it's just so important that you have time to think, that you have time for yourself. And he was a big proponent of just getting up at the ass crack of dawn and going to the gym and whatever. And he said, like, yeah, at first it's hard to get up, but what happens is you just naturally fall asleep earlier. So you'll just go to bed earlier, and it like all works out.
Yeah, it totally works out. And people ask me all the time. I mean, it's almost a daily question on social media, because I'm always posting about, here's what happened on my run, or I might do an Insta story from the gym, and people are like, what time do you go to bed if you're up that early? And it really is true. I'm like an 80-year-old woman. I mean, I go to bed at like 9 p.m.
Yeah.
So everything's just shifted up. And I know that's not for everybody, but if you are somebody who is struggling with, a lot of my clients say, if I don't get it done in the early morning, it's just not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I promise you the early bird really does get the worms.
Hey, it's Andrea here. I just wanted to take a moment to remind you to subscribe to this podcast on your favorite listening app. Or if you're not sure how to do that, just go to andreaisabellucas.com/podcast. And your 5-star reviews are always appreciated. When you take the time to rate and review, it helps this podcast to reach more people. Also, don't forget my book, Own It All, is coming out this March, so stay tuned. I can't wait to share it with you. Yep, I believe that because there are a lot of things that can intervene throughout the day. There's a lot of emergencies that can come up, and some of them maybe air quote emergencies, and some of them might be real. So like, I agree. Getting it over in the morning means that you can check that box and nothing's gonna stand in the way. And then there's been other times where like if that's the thing you need to prioritize in the morning, great. And then sometimes there might be something else you need to do in the mornings. Like for me, when I was working on my book, it was absolutely essential that I not do anything until I spent an hour working on my book every morning. And like, that's when I was at my best. And that's when I could kind of count on myself the most.
Right.
So I needed that.
Well, it's true. And the thing is that what I also have noticed sometimes when I travel and I'm on different time zones, I will work out in the afternoon or evening if I have to. And I can do it. Mm-hmm. But if I get it done first thing, just like you're writing, I have so much more energy throughout the day. And but I've had other people say, oh, I really like working out in the evening because then I can sort of work out all the emotion. And that's the thing about working out that I think is one of the most important points that I teach in Bear, is that it's dropping the transactional relationship with your body, and you're moving your body to process emotion and to create that connection with your higher self, versus I'm working out so that I have J-Lo's abs by next week, Mm-hmm. But it's whatever it is in the morning, whether it's working out or writing, the thing that you think is going to get derailed, it is such a healthy habit to get into where you just do it first thing.
Absolutely agree. I have so many different things I want to ask you about. Like, I have to say, I am obsessed with your newsletter. Everyone listening should definitely sign up for your newsletters. And do you send them out every day?
No. But first of all, thank you for reading them. Mm-hmm. I send out, you must be talking about the Friday Roundup, which is that the newsletter where it has like the podcast, the social media clips?
I don't know. Like I literally read every email that you send. And I feel like I have one from you like almost every day. And I'm like, damn, you are on top of your game with that. But
it depends on, first of all, I appreciate that. Mm-hmm. There are, within my list, there are different things you can sign up to receive. So I do send out frequent emails multiple times a week. So you might get the podcast email, you might get the whatever. But if any of you listening would like to partake, we'll let you know how you can sign up and get the goodies.
Oh, absolutely. And like, it's funny because I sign up for like every email that you send. Like, I don't even care what the hell you're promoting. It could be something for like, are you a coach that's looking to make more money? And it's like, no, I'm not, but I'm opening that email. I don't care. It's going to be something good in it that's going to give me energy for my day. Like,
oh my God, that means so much to me. Thank you.
Yeah, no, you really add so much value, and you share such fantastic just truth bombs of insight in each and every email that you send. And it's something that I really appreciate personally.
Aww,
and I have I think a running list of like questions where I'm like, I want to talk to Susan about this. I want to ask her about that. And so this is fun because I get to publicly ask you the questions that I've been wanting to ask you forever. So like for me, in my role as a fitness professional and business owner, I do think the pressure is certainly there to look a certain way, to feel like I'm supposed to be super in shape all the time. I know you're someone who takes a lot of pride in your appearance. We're both very outspoken feminists. Do you ever struggle with like, oh, I shouldn't have body image issues because I'm a feminist, but I still do?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great question you're raising. And I do think that we all have to remember that we have been immersed in diet culture. We have been steeped in misogyny and the patriarchy since birth. So I am constantly noticing ways in which it shows up for me. Like, I don't think any of us are ever done. I think some of us are further along the path than others, but that there's always layers to this onion to peel back and work on. And so somebody that was in my Facebook community posted the most hilarious post where it was a picture of her. I think she had just gotten blonde highlights or extensions, and she had on like a bustier and these heels. And it was this whole post about, sorry for the internalized misogyny. And I died laughing because it's like, if you really want to get down to it, there are so many things that have to do with fashion and makeup and beauty that women do that are a choice, but that we're taught are an expectation.
Yes.
And, I highlight my hair. I love to adorn myself. I love sequins. I don't think that there's any harm in those things. But as it relates to how my physical body is showing up, I think that the thing that has really helped me get further along on this is constantly reminding myself that this is how my body is appearing today, and nothing has gone wrong. Like that, this is what I am seeing in the mirror is divine. And the messages that we're all receiving on a daily basis can somehow shake that confidence, can sometimes really weigh on us. I don't care who we are. And that it's not our fault.
So when you have those moments where it is weighing on you, you just try to remind yourself that this isn't coming from inside you. This is something that's...
Yeah. I often think about, one of the things I often think about is like little babies who, roll around in their diapers with no shame about, if they have rolls or not. They're not wondering about thigh gap. They're not pinching a belly that hangs over the diaper. And I think I remind myself that like our natural state is joy. Our natural state is love and acceptance. And any thoughts to the contrary have been learned, and that we can pivot away from them, but not to have this secondary spin cycle of really work on like not shaming yourself for having negative impulses in the brain, which is how the brain operates, right? Like there are thoughts that happen that, yes, we have the power to pivot or replace or change, but our brains, like creating new neural pathways in the brain takes time.
It does. I've noticed too that you are outspoken I would just call it like a really body positive way. You post a lot of photos of yourself, and, you talk about your body and how you feel about your body, and you say positive things publicly about your body, which I think gives other women permission to do the same. But I think there's something about putting the thoughts, taking them out of your head and actually putting them out into your network of conversations that helps them be more real.
Yeah, I look at photography as a form of storytelling. And so I was at dinner with an old friend probably about 6 months ago, maybe longer. And I was having a photo shoot in the city as part of that trip. And so when I arrived to dinner, I had like full hair and makeup, and she was like, whoa. And I said, yeah, I'm having or had a photo shoot. And she was like, how many photo shoots do you have? Like, why is this necessary? And I said, well, it's necessary because I am a storyteller, and I I think photography is such an interesting way to tell a story. And so I think part of my message is to be seen as a woman, not hide, not delete yourself from experiences or photos. And so the more I can show myself experiencing life and doing things and feeling proud to be who I am, I think that empowers other women to do the same.
I love that. It's interesting how the messages in our own heads can be so conflicting sometimes. Like I was at the end of the year, I always like to go through my photos from the previous year. It's like part of my, end of the year roundup where I just think about all the things that happened that year. And I had this photo that I had taken of myself. I was at my friend's house in California, and I had just bought this like really, really cute little bikini from Aviator Nation. I took a picture of myself in the mirror, but like I didn't post it. And I think that whatever, I think I have a thing about showing my body where it's like, well, if I show my body, then am I saying other people should look like me? Or I don't know. I have like all my own, set of hang-ups about these things. But I also remember thinking like later that day or something, I was like sitting out on Hermosa Beach in California, and I was watching this lifeguard like doing these crazy ass sprints back and forth on the beach. And she was just absolutely shredded. Like she was jacked. And I was really admiring her body, but I was also comparing myself and being like, oh God, like I can't show my body unless it looks like that. And then it was like, what the fuck am I talking about? Like, what a crazy thought to have. Like, first of all, how the hell would I do everything else that I have to do if I was working out that much and that hard?
Right.
Second of all, why would I do that? Am I looking to get into the Olympics for some reason? Like, the fuck? But it's just, the thoughts are just there, and I remember as I was doing my end of the year roundup, like when I flipped past that photo, I was like, I look fucking amazing in that bikini. Like, it's so cute. It's like so silly that I didn't post that picture, but.
Well, and it absolutely, like, that just illustrates, I call it mind crack, like the stuff that the mind does. And you did a great job of going like, what the hell? Like, when am I trying out for the Olympics? Why do I need to do that? And it really is true. Like, I am a huge, obsessed fan of the Peloton spin bike. I don't know if you know what this is yet. Have you seen? And which is a complete surprise to me because, first of all, I am not a home equipment exercise person. Okay. I'm also typically not a spin person, and I'm not a gadget person, but I am in love with this bike. And one of my favorite instructors, her name is Robin Arzon, and she is a beast. Like, she's written a book called Shut Up and Run. And I was reading an article about her where she talked about her regimen or her like daily life. And she literally, she runs on average 12 miles a day.
Wow.
Plus she may also be teaching, 2 to 3 spin classes. Plus she does weights. Her body, she is an example of what they call shredded. She's abs for days. And that's her full-time job. Okay. Like, when I look at pictures of her, when I'm watching her teach a class, I am in full appreciation of this amazing God pod she is rocking, and also full knowledge and understanding of what it takes. And that is not necessary for my life at all. But I think that what can happen is that girls and women look at social media, look at magazines without questioning and think, oh, I can't go on the beach or show up at the gym unless I look like that too, or that's the goal. And it's like, well, is it really the goal? Should it be the goal?
Exactly. It's kind of like when you start getting envious of someone's social media following or whatever, and you're like, oh, look at them. They're an influencer. Like, they've got all these followers, and like, I should have all these followers. But then like, I think about what it actually took to get there and how much time they put into it, and that it didn't just accidentally happen to them. Like, they actually worked for it. And it's like, am I willing to do that? Is that something I actually want to work toward, or not really?
I know. Again, it's sort of this external that human beings are always looking for, whether it's an external diet plan or external Instagram feed, or, it's like, Bear is really about turning towards yourself and connecting with yourself and making decisions that feel like love. And it may or may not feel like love to build an Instagram following. It may or may not feel like love to 100% focus on getting shredded.
Mm-hmm.
It may or may not feel like love to fill in the blank. And I think that our culture in particular really has got to wake up to the value that we put on the external versus the internal.
I want to ask you more about this thing that you call environmental detox.
Oh, yeah.
What is that?
Super fun. So environmental detox is really the first step to the bear process. And it's where I have clients really evaluate most people come into bear and they immediately want to start talking about food. What should I eat? And I'm like, not so fast. We're going to talk about everything else that's coming at you through your senses, not just your food. Like, what are you watching? What are you listening to? What peer group are you hanging around? Are you listening to peer conversations that are damaging, boring, whatever? And so environmental diet or environmental detox is about spending time assessing all of those things. So a tiny example for me, even after I had done this work for a long time, was that I noticed that in the evenings, I might be sitting reading a book or on social media and would just hand over the remote to my husband, Scott.
Mm-hmm.
And he still to this day has a preference for shows that are like good versus evil. Mm-hmm. So CSI Miami and Special Victims Unit and stuff that's like, just in my opinion, right before bedtime.
It's heavy.
Heavy dramas, like police dramas. And I noticed that even having that on in the background for me was causing some anxiety before bed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, especially as a rape survivor, I don't want to watch Special Victims Unit. And I couldn't believe that this was a new discovery to me, mm-hmm. but it was. And so we still have negotiations over what's going to be on while I'm in the room. And so, and he's definitely like cool to be flexible about it, but it's not something that bothers him. Mm-hmm. So it's a good example because I want to challenge your listeners to really think about, are you on default? Like, are you allowing, I'm in New York City right now and I got into the back of a cab, and I don't know if where you live, the cabs are like this, but now they have screens in the back that are playing a show, mm-hmm. or like a news show or whatever, the volume's up loud, but it has a feature where you can turn it off. Yeah. And it's sort of like that. How often are you getting in the cab and just letting the thing blare without deciding for yourself, I actually need some quiet. Let me turn this off. Mm-hmm. So, is the person in the cubicle next to you constantly leaning over and gossiping when you'd rather not? And so it's really taking control of what is going on and coming at you from all angles, and what kind of choices and boundaries can we set?
Yeah, I love that. Even I'm pretty sure that if you don't go out of your way, like your iPhone will give you news headlines. And it's like, no, thank you. I really just don't need that popping up on my phone and just being in my face all the time. Certain things like that. I think it makes sense to question, wait, do I have to have, even in the evening, do I have to be available to keep looking at social media? Could I shut my phone off? Could I put it in the other room? I use something called inbox pause to stop me mm-hmm. from compulsively checking my email all throughout the evening and feeling compelled to respond. I just stop, my inbox from coming in until I unpause it the next morning. So I think all of those things are great to think about. That's awesome. You mentioned also, you were talking about, just to kind of sort of come back to food for a second, but when we were talking about that, you mentioned that a lot of times we seek out these pleasure foods because there is a lack of pleasure in our lives. Can you give us some examples of ways that you or your clients make sure to get more pleasure without just relying on food or alcohol for that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the thing is when I start talking about pleasure, people usually instantly start thinking about sex,
Mm-hmm.
which yes, intimacy can be a form of pleasure. But I think that especially women don't prioritize or diversify their pleasure. So women either think it means like having sex or purchasing, consuming something like a massage, which I love a
Mm-hmm.
massage, but true pleasure on a daily basis are things like sitting in the sun and petting your dog, or taking 10 minutes to sit quietly with a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, or putting on lotion. Those are tiny little examples of working pleasure in throughout the day so that you're not this deprived mess like I was. And by 4 p.m., like looking for cheese for the answer.
Right.
Right. So I like to think about simple pleasures and pleasure in different categories. So there's comfort for sure. Do you need to curl up with a blanket, or intimacy? So intimacy could mean intimate conversations, not just sex. It could mean intellectual stimulation, which is honestly what I needed
Mm.
when I was sitting at the dining room table with pre-K worksheets. I really, needed some adult conversation, some watching a TED talk or going to a museum, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It could also mean beauty, immersing yourself in beauty. This is a dramatic example, but I went to a Christian Dior exhibit in Paris, and I wept the whole way through because the designs were so stunning. People were looking at me like I was a nutbag. I swear to God. And I was just like, it was just so moving to me. But immersing yourself in beauty could be nature, right? It doesn't have to be something like
Mm.
that. But I just think really thinking about the different categories of pleasure and how can I work this in so that I'm eating with a cloth napkin instead of, like you mentioned, standing up and popping the chocolate
Mm-hmm.
berries in your mouth. I certainly have been there. Even
Yeah.
recently, I was standing at the counter shoveling this beautiful meal in my face, and I'm like, wait a minute, let me sit
Mm-hmm.
down and really taste this and use a nice plate and napkin.
Mm. Yeah, I love knowing that you were just walking through this exhibit in tears, because that is so, first of all, that's just very validating to me, because I'm such a sap and I cry so easily, and I cry when I watch World of Dance. Have you seen this show? It's J-Lo's show.
Yes, yes,
Oh, every
yes.
freaking one makes me cry because it's so beautiful, and like they're just giving it their all, every cell in their body. They're like just dancing with everything they have, and it's like, oh, it just gets me every time. My daughter gets so embarrassed when we're watching that show together, and she'll be like, "Are you crying?" I'm like, "What? No."
I love that you love that show.
So
I
good.
know. It's sort of like, and that's pleasure, right? There are a lot of people who will say, turn off the TV. I actually get quite a bit of pleasure from a Netflix
Mm-hmm.
binge. But so it's like, what is it that is pleasurable to you? And go geek out on that.
Exactly.
Do that.
Yep. For me, RuPaul's Drag Race is like my medicine. It's like my church.
I love that too. I love that show too.
You sent out, I am obsessed with your newsletter. I'm just going to keep talking about your emails because they're so goddamn good. You sent out an email recently, and I want to say the subject line was choose yourself. And the
Yes.
message was all about not waiting to be picked, not waiting for permission, which is
Mm-hmm.
a huge message in my book, Own It All. And it's really the central message in that book. And
Mm.
I would love for you to share a time when you had to choose yourself, a time when maybe you weren't being offered a seat at the table and you had to kind of just make one, or just a time when you realized, what the hell am I waiting for? It's up to me to pick myself and to go for it.
Actually, first of all, congratulations on your book. I can't wait to read it.
Thanks.
Amazing. And it relates to my book. It was a long journey to scoring an agent who believed in Bear. And once I had an agent, she was trying to pitch publishers. And she said to me, I can't remember why this trip that I'm thinking about to New York City was happening. But I said to her, I'm coming to New York on these dates, and I would love to see if you could get any publishers interested and I could be in town for meetings. And so she was like, okay, sure, I'll try. And I came to New York to do my thing. Oh, I remember what it was. It was my 10-year business anniversary. I was doing a big party and like a high tea. And I thought, how perfect if she pitched publishers and we had interest and I could be available for these meetings. So she sent out her first round of pitches and there was some interest, but there were a lot of questions. And one by one, the publishers were coming back with no's or, oh, we're already representing something that conflicts with that message or, whatever, not interested. And the longer my trip to New York went on, the more clear it became that no one wanted to meet with me. And I had actually rented this Airbnb loft to film some videos for a different project. And I was like, you know what? I am done sitting around this big, beautiful loft waiting for publishers to choose me. I choose me. And so I called the videographer that had just completed filming a whole day with us for a different project. And I said, hey, are you available tomorrow? Because I still have this big, beautiful loft and I want to film some bear videos. And so I decided that night, I wrote out the scripts. And the next day I filmed several videos and created a bear digital product before the book was even had a contract. And I created my own book advance by selling the bear digital program. And that was like one of the biggest examples of choosing myself. I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to sit around feeling sorry for myself. I'm going to launch a digital program before the book even comes out. And then, of course, now it's great to have that because people who buy the book can get the digital product for free.
That's awesome. And even if like you pivoted at that moment, so like, now you do have a publisher and your book is coming out. And even if like things had taken a different course, like you still had this amazing product that you created that people could access your curriculum.
Yeah, I was like, the book is written, the material is good, and I want it in the hands of people. So I'm not going to wait around for publishers to decide I'm worth it. And it was so empowering. And I ultimately think that decision and that energy is what ultimately attracted the right publisher.
So your book comes out in March.
Yeah.
And what can readers expect to get from your book?
So what readers can expect is a lot of inspiration and motivation, but also some really practical, it's a 7-step process that takes you really on a journey back to yourself. And so there are really practical, tangible things that you can do as part of the bear process. And I think what most of my clients report is I actually just got an email late last night from a woman who is part of there's a Bear Daily membership community that when people pre-order the book, they get a month free in there. But she sent me a message and said, I'm 56 years old. And for the first time in my life, I don't have thoughts that I'm fat and ugly. For the first time in my life, I feel good when I look in the mirror. And so I think ultimately for your listeners, I can't promise results, but if you dig in and do the work, what you're going to do is unwind any harm that's happening in your mind, and you're going to learn how to think different thoughts.
That's amazing and so exciting, and I cannot wait to check it out. I'm also very excited that you are one of the interviewees in my book, Own It All, which also comes out in March, and you will be featured in the book talking about your book and your work in the bear process. And it's so refreshing. It's such a breath of fresh air.
Oh, thank you. It's my legacy. I have an 18-year-old daughter, and I really want my granddaughters to look back on our generation and go, can you believe they used to like count points and weigh food?
Seriously. While there were way, way bigger things going on and way bigger problems that needed solving in the world.
Right. Can you believe that was a thing? That's my greatest wish.
Well, that is beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. I am so honored to have had you today, and I'm so excited we finally got to talk, and I cannot wait for your book to come out, and I can't wait to share this podcast and your interview with my listeners and readers for Own It All.
Oh, thank you so much. It was truly a delight, and I can't wait to promote your book to my audience as well.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, bye.
I'm Andrea Isabel Lucas, and this has been the Own It All podcast. Thank you so much for listening this week. If you liked what you heard, please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review on your favorite listening app. It really helps, and I would be so grateful. I'll be back next Wednesday with a brand new episode. See you then.